Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews on just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Witch Thief, which was just recently released for the Nintendo Switch. And if you've seen it or heard anything about it, you probably are already aware that Witch Thief is more of an arena-style shooter bullet hell. However, it took the opportunity to stretch the genre all the way into 3D. But before we get into the story or the review, I want to take a quick second to acknowledge and thank both of my newest Patreons, Mike Cashman and Quiet Lion, for their pledges and support of the channel. So thanks guys, especially for a small channel like ours, your support means so much. But moving into the actual story of Witch Thief, as we might expect from a game that focuses purely on its action, it is pretty light. More or less, there was some uber powerful warlock, and before he could take over the world, his powers were sealed away in a grimoire. However, his powers are still influencing witches and wizards all around and corrupting them, so it's up to the Witch Thief to find the grimoire and take it for herself. But it's not like she's trying to save the world or anything, she's just a bit of a klepto and enjoys the challenge. Moving into the actual gameplay of Witch Thief though, the players are immediately introduced with a pretty enticing 3D world. The colors, setting, shading of the game, and just general environment are really immersive. And the way that the combat settings are laid out from area to area gives the player enough space to be able to accurately move around and dodge. And in addition to its beautiful graphics, Witch Thief has taken the opportunity to incorporate a lot of aspects of shoot-'em-up gaming that a lot of fans might really enjoy. Of course, the bullet hell and shoot-'em-up genres mainly consist of dodging in and out of bullets and trying to fire when you can to take out as many enemies as fast as possible. However, the addition of spells, which can be used as screen-clearing bombs, can not only be used to wipe the screen when there's just too many projectiles to dodge, but also work to collect the enemy fire and divert it back on them. However, as you can only carry the maximum of 3 spells at a time, this obviously isn't the main mechanic for avoiding enemy fire. Witch Thief has also incorporated a dodging mechanic which grants you temporary invulnerability and allows you to flip back and forth through the screen for a few seconds to figure out where it might be most advantageous for you to sit down and start firing again. And while this mechanic can definitely work to your advantage, it's definitely not the biggest draw for the hardcores out there. One final mechanic has actually been introduced, that if holding down the LZ button you can focus your fire and reveal your own hitbox. So if you're already thinking it, yes, this makes your blast fire more accurate and more powerful, but it also allows you to graze. And grazing, for anyone who's not actually read into the program, is pretty much when a bullet passes through your character's avatar but not actually through the character's hitbox. And this is a mechanic that Witch Thief actually takes into consideration and does use to add to your score. And as you navigate through the game's many dark hallways and engage in both mob spawn combat and boss fights, which can sometimes even resemble wave-style combat, you'll have plenty of opportunities to get a handle on all of these mechanics. On the note of levels and boss fights though, there are 5 major levels to play through, and of course 5 area bosses before beating the game. And if you're playing through Witch Thief on story mode, there are some additional bonuses to making it further in the game. Each boss you beat at the end of each level basically is woken up from the power of the grimoire and actually becomes a playable character. Each playable character as well has its own unique starting abilities and bomb abilities, and actually does have different dialogue for each of the interactions. However, should you just enjoy a character's sprite much more than its starting ability, as you navigate through the castle crushing mobs in boxes to collect gems and crystals, you'll also pick up new power-ups. And these can range anywhere from the indiscriminate blaster fire to a power-up of your original move to the ever-popular death beam. And while these ability drops are completely randomized, should you manage to pick up more than one of each, it will scale up the power. But moving on past the game's story and its general mechanics, it's time to get into everybody's favorite portion of the game review, and that is the critique. The visuals, as we've stated, are absolutely gorgeous and really do push the quality of this video game up a couple levels. However, they might actually be the game's best feature. And while they've integrated a lot of characteristics of the game that would be huge sells to people who are fans of arena-style combat and bullet hells in general, the way the 3D mechanic is integrated actually promotes a lot of flaws. While it is awesome to be able to go into combat and move behind bookshelves or even get behind your enemies, which are pretty much locked in directional fire, there's also the potential for the same thing to happen to you. In a single combat area, multiple rounds of enemy spawns will occur, and there's absolutely nothing stopping them from spawning or launching attacks from behind. And in this sense, though you can control your camera angle, it's locked to a third-person perspective directly behind your character. And this means that you can't actually have kind of a God-style view and see if there is anything behind you without spinning all the way around. And so in a sense, the 3D style combat gives you as many disadvantages as it does advantages. Similarly to this though, the random abilities that you can pick up by destroying crates and enemies during combat, though they are randomly dropped, can be accidentally picked up. Which means that if you have actually managed to develop a weapon that you're most comfortable with at a very high level, running through a narrow hallway where you've destroyed a box with a new weapon ability will pretty much mean that there goes the weapon you've worked on. Additionally, weapon drops gained in combat immediately despawn as soon as the combat's over, so unless you're willing to rush an enemy that's currently engaged in immersing you in heavy combat, you're pretty much going to have to kiss any of those drops goodbye. Additionally, and on the same note as the combat, there are a few times where you're really going to feel like the game took a cheap shot at you. In many circumstances, especially when considering the death beams, they seemingly come out of nowhere with no warning. And generally in bullet hell style games, attacks that can draw a line across the entire screen in a split second have some sort of forecast to allow the player to get out of the way. Additionally, there are a few glitches to be seen in combat, such as the occasional ghost round that'll wipe out your character with no visible depiction of a bullet on the screen. And though few and far between, every once in a while you can destroy an enemy character and they will continue to fire for a few seconds. But moving away from combat fails and game glitches, while the video is definitely a really high priority in the game, the audio seems to have taken a major backseat. And as the combat can already be pretty frustrating, as all bullet hells pretty much are, having a very high intensity yet monotonous soundtrack can just really drive that rage home. So while it may eventually fade into the background of your awareness, the one thing that's going to stand out to every single player within seconds of them engaging with the game is the low quality of the sound effects. Firing off your ability doesn't actually have a sound effect, so having different abilities doesn't have different sound effects. And every single weapon fire that makes contact with any surface or enemy just results in a sort of disappointing thud. And all in all, that's just one additional thing that makes the gaming experience, well, disappointing. But even if you can get past all of that, even if you can start enjoying the intensity of the combat with all of these minor glitches and flaws, unfortunately in Witch Thief, when the gaming gets tough, the game gets going. And in several instances I've had frame rates down to a couple frames a second, down to complete bog downs with 10 to 12 second recovery times, and of course, I died within that span of time. So as a final note to any player, if you are a fan of arena-style shooters or bullet hells, this game might be worth your time, but definitely not at the price point it's listed for. And for anyone else, that's up to you. But on that note, that does about wrap up the review of Witch Thief now on the Nintendo Switch. So if you enjoyed the review or found it helpful, feel free to throw me a comment or a like to show your support, and don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. There are new and unique indies coming out literally every single day, so there's always going to be something new to find right here. But since I can only cover a couple of reviews a week, if you want to figure out which ones I might be covering next, you can follow us on Twitter. But anyway, this has been Budget Gamers, so as always, thanks for watching.